Welcome to the Interfaith Forum, episode 24. The Interfaith Forum is an initiative of the Interfaith Action for Peace, IFAP. IFAP is working to build capacities for the peaceful coexistence of religious groups in Nigeria. With us in the studio today to discuss the topic, the importance of human rights and justice in improving interfaith relations, are two highly esteemed guests. To my left is Barrister Ojobo Atulukwu of Development in Practice. Welcome, Sister Ojobo.
Thank you very much.
And opposite me is Sister Hannatu Akilu of Women in Da'wah in Abuja. I am Jummai Umarajijola. Sister Hannatu, I'd like to start with you. What are human rights? And who gives these rights? And how serious are these rights?
Human rights are the inalienable rights of every human being. And they are divine rights given by God. The right to life, the right to live, the right to be the person that you are. These are what human rights are.
How serious are they, would you say? Are they things to tolerate?
And they're very serious in that everybody has the right to it. You know, it is not something that is relative or something that is a choice. It is something that is compulsory. It is the right of every human being that he has a right to life, and he has a right to a place to live, and he has a right to live as the person that he wants to be within the society that he lives in.
Sister Ojobo, is there anything you'd like to add to the issue of what are human rights, who gives them, and are they serious issues?
I'd like to agree with Hajia Hannatu, because what she has said is true. But I'll also put my cap on as a lawyer as well as a Christian to say that there are actually two views. For those who are not people of faith, they think it's rights that are derived from nature. But for those who are people of faith, we see it as rights that are derived because we are human beings made in the image of God, which is exactly how she has captured it. These rights have been given to us through our creation. And so whether you are looking at it from the nature point of view or from the spiritual point of view, we have these rights because we are, because we exist. And so they are very serious because they are fundamental to our existence as human beings. That's what makes us different from other creatures, say insects or whatever. So because we are human, we have these rights.
It's interesting because it actually leads me right to my next question, which is, what are their religious basis for this human rights? And are these rights exclusive to any religious faith, would you say?
They are religious basis, even though from the Christian perspective, I think that human rights actually existed before Christianity started. You find that there were philosophers who lived in the days before Christ was born who had developed concepts around human rights. But Christianity came about and built a concept of human rights that takes it further, that today in the way we understand human rights, there's actually even a conflict between what is human rights and what is a Christian's duty to his or her neighbor based on the rights that we see as given to us by God himself. So yes, there's a spiritual basis to human rights that we think that makes them greater than any other law that man would have put in place to regulate society.
That are that's not exclusive to Christianity.
Exactly.
Sister Hannatu, from the Islamic perspective, what are the basis of human rights? And would you say that they are exclusive to Islam or to any religious groups for that matter?
Human rights, according to Islam, exists because in the Quran, there are verses in the Quran that attributes when a crime is committed, punishment is to be given. So if punishment is to be given, it means that makes it a right. A life for a life, an ear for an ear. And then in Islam, the golden rule of Islam, according to An-Nawawi, is that you are not a true believer until you want for your fellow human being what you want for yourself. So if what you want for yourself is what you want for yourself, you take it as a right, then it becomes a right that is inalienable to everybody, because you should want for the other person what you want for yourself. So right is something that you cannot remove from religion, or you cannot remove from existence.
That leads us again into what are some of the most important human rights that relate to peaceful interrelations, but which are least respected in our society. Sister Hannatu, I'd like you to start addressing that question. What are some of the most important human rights that relate to peaceful interrelations, but which we least respect in our society?
The right to life is one of the most revered rights in Islam. Every human being has a right to life. And what is happening now is that people just kill according to whims. So these are things that go against the grain of the deen. You cannot take a life just because you don't want that person to exist, or for whatever political belief. You have to have a basis, a fundamental basis for removing that life. So these are one of the things that, and then the right to freedom of religion. In the Holy Quran, it says that there is no compulsion in religion. So if there is no compulsion in religion, it means that you cannot force what you believe onto another person. That person has to want to believe from his own self, his own violation, not something that is compelled on him. And when people insist that other people have to see things in their own faith, then you are compelling. That is the right that you're taking away from somebody. Then the right to live, the right to dress. These are things that are fundamental human rights that every human being should be able to decide what he wants to wear, so long as it is within reason. You know, it doesn't affect, you don't go trample into the right of another person, because right ends at the point where another person's right starts. So these are the rights that we are taking away from ourselves.
Sister Ojobo, would you like to add something to this? Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that if not that you were mentioning in Islam, it could have been the same position of the issue in Christianity that you were mentioning. Because going back to your earlier statement around the golden rule, the Old Testament gives us the 10 Commandments, which in the New Testament, Jesus comes and actually condenses it to thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all your heart, with all your strength, and with all your soul, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. So it's exactly the same golden rule that we also have in Islam. And then there are also the issues around the issues that you've mentioned. There's one of the things that God actually gives us is free will. God does not even compel you to believe in him. The demons believe in him. As a human being, you have a choice. You can believe in him. You may decide not to believe in him. It's a choice for you to decide that, yes, I want to believe in Christ for my salvation, or for in preparation for my life in eternity. And so there's actually no compulsion in religion. And so the implementation of human rights actually within the Christian faith is part of the works that make us live a richer life while we are here on earth, that make us show the kind of love that we have for God as translates into our love for our fellow human beings. And so really, it's all tied to how we want to relate with God. It's a matter of how we want to build the relationship with God. But that relationship must exhibit in the way we relate with our neighbors as well.
To take you up on a point that you started on about the implementations, then who are the actors in addressing human rights? Who would you say is responsible for the implementations of human rights issues? And what role would these different actors, if you wish, what role do they have to play?
I think I would like to start from parents. Parents are a primary stakeholder in terms of the religious upbringing of a child. Even the Child Rights Act respects the fact that every child is entitled to a religion of the parents. So if I, for instance, I adopt a Muslim child, if it's possible, I have a responsibility to bring up that child in the faith of the parents of that child. So I cannot impose Christianity on the child because I have adopted the child, you know. So really, parents have the primary duty of
Sister
bringing
Ojobo,
up
let me
a child.
understand you very well. Are you saying that in orphanages, if I were to take my child to an orphanage as a Muslim and it's a Christian orphanage, then they would have to...
And I know that, and it's known that the child is a Muslim child. Yeah, so there's a responsibility that in the parentage of that child being Islamic, I ought to bring up that child in the way that the parents would have preferred that for that child to be brought up. So there's really no compulsion. Yes, I can teach the child the morality as I know it, but I do have a duty to also teach that child the religion of his or her parents.
Any other actors?
Yeah, there's a whole range of other actors. Of course, there's the state. I like to talk about the state because the state does have a duty to ensure that citizens enjoy their human rights, to ensure that there's a fulfillment of it, and also to protect human rights of citizens, regardless of what the situation may be. And so the first thing the state does is to integrate this into our constitution, where we have chapter 4 that lists a range of about 12 fundamental rights. These rights are actually basically civic and political rights. What our constitution does is to pick the social, economic and cultural rights and put it in chapter 2. So the difference is that if your rights under chapter 4, the civic political rights, are infringed, the state actually has a duty to protect them, so you can sue and so on. But the state has, by law, removed its responsibility under the socio-economic and cultural rights, and that is where the crux is, and that lies where we have problems in Nigeria of today.
Looking at actors in the human rights space, what would you think are some of the roles that they have to play as actors?
The roles that I think that human rights activists or actors have to play is in encouraging dialogue between different faiths, encouraging youth to understand and empathize with each other. You know, empathize in the sense that being able not to go into confrontation on issues, on religious issues, but to be able to see the other person's view, allow that person to act his own belief and you act your own belief. As human rights actors, it is desirable for them to initiate programs on television, on radio, programs that would educate people on the differences, because it is on the differences that we have problems. If we can understand the differences and then be able to empathize with each other and to be able to dialogue on the differences, then we'll come to an understanding. You know, there wouldn't be that conflict situation, because conflict usually comes in when there is ignorance.
Could you please kind of stress on a little bit more on what role religious institutions and civil society, for example, have to play in promoting human responsibilities beyond human rights?
They could start by appealing to people's consciences, to see the other person or the person with another faith as a human being, not as an object or something, an innate object. To see him as a human being and to see yourself in the position of the other person. If you were in that position, how would you want that person to treat you? So it is about empathizing. So if religious leaders would teach more of their religion, you know, because all religions...
Sorry to cut off, but look at yourself and your association, Women in Da'wah. How would you do, what would you do as a group and as an individual within to promote human responsibility?
As a group, we would go out and educate people. on the principles of life, the principles of understanding, the principles of mutual coexistence, then we would encourage our adherents to invite people of other faiths to their homes to eat, to see how they live, to see how they interact with each other, to be able to coexist with each other, see the other person, go to their places where they have conferences, interfaith conferences where you have Muslims and Christians intermingling and having a conference on a particular issue that is vexatious at that point in time. Propagating knowledge is the way to go about removing these
Sister Ojobo, what role can religious institutions and civil society as a whole play in promoting human responsibility over and beyond human rights?
I think I have to agree with Hajiya Hannatu here and go back to the 10 Commandments. If the 10 Commandments were to be put in a human rights way, it will be, instead of saying thou shalt not kill, it will be saying thou shalt have a right to life. Instead of saying thou shalt keep the Sabbath day holy, it will be telling you thou shalt have a right to one free day in a week.
Okay.
So really the message is that from a spiritual, religious point of view, religious leaders do have a responsibility to show that the responsibility is on you and how you exercise or respect the other person's rights, rather than how you are claiming those rights. And so if I'm with you, I have a responsibility not to attack you. And so it is not that I'm claiming that, yes, this is my life, I have a right to life, but I have a first and fundamental responsibility to respect those rights that you have, rather than see myself as being owner of the same rights. Because as we have said, the golden rule is love your neighbor as yourself. You have to identify that your action has an effect on your neighbor. And so what are those effects? Is it positive? Is it negative? These are the things that religious institutions have a responsibility to show that, look, human rights really does not satisfy the requirements of spiritual tenets. It does not satisfy the requirements that God has of us. One of the things that Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 13 is the greatest gift of all being love. Regardless of no matter what kind of gift you have, how you prophesy, what kind of things you do, if you don't have love, it is nothing. It doesn't register according to the Bible. And so this love is the one that you use to exercise how you relate with your neighbor. And that really is the fundamental issue.
May I add something to what you said?
In 30 seconds.
Okay. Going by what you said, during the time of the great Khalifas, the governor of Egypt wanted to expand on a mosque, and the mosque went into the house of a lady who was living there. So they offered her compensation, but she refused compensation. And the governor said they should go ahead, I'm cutting it short. He said they should go ahead and give her the compensation and demolish her building. So that was done and the mosque was extended. Then the great Khalifa Umar heard of what the governor had done, and he sent to him and told him that he should revert the mosque to the point where it was and build up this lady's house for her. So you see, this is justice being practiced, and the right of this woman is being enhanced. But when she heard what the Khalifa said, she accepted and said, okay, she had allowed that they should.
So on that note, there you have it, colleagues, friends, and associates, from Sister Ojobo Atulukwu of Development in Practice, and from Sister Hannatu Akilu of Women in Dawa here at Abuja. Thank you for spending your time with us, and thank you, viewers, for also being with us. May the Almighty be with us all. Please join us in encouraging what is good always and discouraging what is bad. Meanwhile, please follow IFAB on Twitter at IFABNG or hashtag IFABNG. On Facebook, follow us on Interfaith Forum, IFAB. Send in your questions through Twitter or Facebook. Meanwhile, keep the faith, keep the peace. Till we meet again, thank you.